Hi Year 11s, welcome back to the channel. I have just worked out something equally as exciting as the last film, which is how I can be in two places at once to make sure that I'm really good at helping you. So you've got me here on the whiteboard and you've got me there in the room. So the purpose of this is going to be to work through a question on paper 3. So paper 3, remember the first half is the pre-release that we'll work through together later on, and the second half is about fieldwork. So we need to practice questions relating to our human fieldwork and our physical fieldwork. So these will be about several different things. For each of those examples, you might have a question that is based on the question, the investigation question. What did we actually want to find out when we were in Birmingham or when we were at Cardinal Valley? What did we actually do when we were there? So what methods did we use? For example, a traffic count or measuring the width and depth of the river. So what methods did we actually use? Then what did we do with that information when we came back to school? So our data presentation methods. How did we present that data in graphs or maps? And how useful was that? So what was good about those techniques? What was bad about those techniques? And then finally, you might have a question on the conclusion. So what was the conclusion from your human or your physical fieldwork? Is it a reliable conclusion? What makes it a reliable conclusion? Is that because your fieldwork techniques were good, your data presentation was good, and that enables you to make a strong conclusion? Okay, so we're going to work through a 6-mark question. In this first session, we're going to concentrate on the human fieldwork, and then later on we're going to have a look at some physical fieldwork. Okay, so the questions on the board behind me. We're going to do this together in real time, so I'll pause it and allow Mrs. Challoner in the room to help you, and then we'll play it and we'll allow Mrs. Challoner on the board to help you. So at the end of, which should be about 6 minutes for a 6-marker, you should have a perfect answer. So let's have a look at the question now. We've got state the title of your fieldwork inquiry in which human geography data was collected. So although you don't get any marks for this question, it's related to the question after it. So it shows your understanding of being an investigative geographer. Okay, so state the title of your fieldwork. So if you have a look at what I'm writing on the paper, so let's have a look at what we're doing here. Okay. So it says state the title of your fieldwork, and we know now that it's about our human geography. Okay, so it doesn't matter at this stage if you can't remember exactly what it is that we did, but as long as you remember it was about regeneration in Birmingham, it was about challenges and opportunities. Okay, so the regeneration of Birmingham, what are the challenges and opportunities? Now if you just remember the first half, that will be absolutely fine, okay? A little bit more detail with the opportunities and challenges in there. So then the main question here now is assess how effective your presentation techniques were in representing the data collection in this inquiry. So when we were in Birmingham, 6 marks, so that's usually about 3 well-explained points. So I think at this stage, really, we'll pause it and you can have a go at thinking about what this question means, okay? So let's have a look together. So we've got some assessing. So assess is our command word, and what that means is that you need to say what was good about the data presentation, what was bad about it, and how useful was that then in drawing our conclusions. So assessment is like 2 sides of an argument. And it's about presentation techniques. So this question isn't asking you, what did you do when you were in Birmingham? It's asking you, what did you do when you get back to school with that information? So our data presentation techniques, okay, in representing this data, okay? So what did we do when we were in Birmingham? So the best one is our environmental quality survey. So that is a brilliant one to start with, or even if you just remember this one technique, because this has so much. So from that environmental quality survey, which you remember, we had a scale of 1 to 5. We had different things that are going to assess the environment down here: litter, overall attractiveness, accessibility. 1 being the bad side, 5 being the best, for example. And then we were scoring in 5 of our locations about the quality of that environment. Now, while that was good, so that's our data presentation technique, first of all, was a table. And then we use that information then to create some bar graphs. Now we did that, 1 little bar graph for each of our 5 sites. We could also add up these ticks to give a total score. And then we could use that information to annotate around a photo and maps. Okay, so there's quite a lot there that we can write about. Now, remember, it's not asking you about what we did, so you don't need to explain about what we did, but what we did with the information when we got back. So what is the good and the bad things about bar graphs, about the total score, about photos and maps, okay? So with these, this was about annotation. Now, that was the first thing that we did. The other things that we did was the traffic count. Okay, and then the traffic count, that data then was represented in proportional pie diagram. So depending on the radius and the number of cars that we counted, we were then able to draw different size pie charts depending on the traffic. So that was bikes, that was cars, etc. Okay, so each of this, so this pie chart had a colour key. This bar graph would have had a colour key depending on the criteria, so we've got colours. Okay, so we need to assess now each of these techniques. Now we don't need to go crazy because we have only got 6 marks, okay? So let's just move that aside and have a look now then at starting to write our own answer. Okay, so when Okay, so just by way of an introduction, you won't get any marks for this, but it just shows your understanding. So when in Birmingham, we carried out an environmental quality survey, a traffic count, and took lots of photographs to show the regeneration of Birmingham. So let's start with the EQS, okay. So the environmental quality survey would need to say what the good things were about this, about the data presentation techniques, and some of the bad things. This Okay, so first of all then, The data was presented in a table. Now that wasn't very good because it meant comparing the different areas was difficult. So to overcome this, we drew little bar graphs for each site, colour coding each factor, which was useful because we could easily see then which environmental factors were causing the main problems in each area or which were well managed. Okay, so that's the bar graphs, that's the first thing that's done. Okay, so this was used to, so the total score then was used to annotate photographs which show the main benefits or impacts of regeneration. Okay, so what this meant is annotating a photograph then is a useful technique because from that photograph you can see, you can highlight the main benefits and the main impacts, and certainly together with a map that would be really useful. Okay, so the total score was a good technique because it highlighted the main parts of the photo. However, the problem with this is very subjective, that every one of you would annotate the photograph differently and spot different things. Okay, so we've got our environmental quality survey, we've got our annotated photographs, and finally, well, let's mention something then about the traffic count. Okay, so finally the traffic count data was represented in proportional pie diagrams. This is This is a problem because the actual numbers are lost in a pie chart, so it makes accuracy difficult when you come to analyse your data. However, proportion shows which areas have the most or the least traffic. Okay, so let's just go through, make sure we've got everything here. Our bit of an introduction. Then we've got our environmental quality survey. So I know I've got one method there. And our first data presentation technique was the table, and that was difficult. And then to improve that we then went on to draw our bar graphs. Okay, so that's our first technique or second technique, table, drawing the bar graphs, and why that was useful. Okay, so it was useful here because we can see which of the bars showed which were the most important significant factors. Then we've got our total score together with our annotated photographs, which was useful because we could then see the benefits of regeneration here, But the problem with that is that it's subjective and people have different opinions. Then finally, we've got our traffic count, and this was represented in our proportional pie diagrams here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 really with the table. Why that was problematic, okay, because you lose your actual numbers in a pie chart, but why it was good, because it shows proportion. And the overwhelming thing is why these are good is because we can actually make a conclusion about our main aim. Okay, so I think I deserve a 6 out of 6. So now over to you, and you can have a look at your answers and see if they're as good as mine. Okay, thank you.